Today, you can still encounter people who have never used the internet or a mobile phone. You can even find people who don't know how to read or write. This is rare, but it is a fact. However, it is difficult to find someone who has never worn Adidas clothing or shoes, or at least never heard of the brand. This is not surprising because the German brand is one of the leaders in sportswear today. The company produces clothing, footwear, and accessories not only for sports but also for everyday life. Today, Adidas owns companies such as Reebok, Rockport, System, and TaylorMade Golf. But where did this company come from? Who founded it? How did it all begin? And how did it become one of the most recognizable brands in the world? This is what we will talk about today. Officially, the Adidas company was founded in 1949, but its history began long before that. Adolf Dassler was born into a poor family on November 3rd, 1900, in a small Bavarian town. His father was a simple shoemaker, and his mother worked as a laundress in a local laundry. With little prospect, Adolf helped his father from a young age and soon became a shoemaker himself. The family lived in extreme poverty, barely making ends meet. Therefore, in 1920, the Dassler family decided to start their own shoe business. Adolf Dassler, only 20 years old at the time, took charge of the company, and his brother Rudolf soon joined him. Their friends called them Adi and Rudy. The small Dassler brothers shoe factory, if you could call it a factory, focused on producing orthopedic shoes for athletes and house slippers, operating out of the laundry where their mother worked. The business grew slowly, and the slippers were in demand, but it was just another small shoemaking workshop, of which there were hundreds in Germany at the time. Some might have been content with that, but Adi was obsessed with growing the company. After many experiments, which often ended in failure, he managed to create a product that was revolutionary for its time. In 1925, Adolf created the world's first football boots with studded soles, which a year later became the factory's main product. His partners were ordinary blacksmiths, the Zala brothers, who made the spikes for the soles in their workshop. The demand for Dassler shoes grew daily, leading to the purchase of their own factory building in 1928. Together with Josef Weitz, the Dasslers developed and patented a new model of spiked shoes, which truly made the factory famous. But how do you get your shoes worn by the best? The answer: simply give them to athletes at the Olympic Games. At the 1936 Berlin Olympics, American sprinter Jesse Owens, wearing Dassler shoes, won 4 gold medals and set 5 world records. This was the first time the famous Dassler logo, 2 stripes, appeared. After this event, many athletes chose Dassler shoes for their Olympic performances, thanks to the innovative design. By the late 1930s, the Dassler factory's sales exceeded 400,000 German marks, about $100,000. In 1938, the second Dassler factory opened. At its peak, the business produced thousands of pairs of shoes daily, and sales grew rapidly until World War II. Despite both Dassler brothers being staunch members of the Nazi Party, their factories were confiscated by the Nazis, and the brothers were sent to the front. One of the factories was even converted to produce handheld anti-tank grenade launchers, though the equipment wasn't suited for this. Adolf was recalled from the army within a year to produce training shoes for German soldiers. After World War II, the Bavarian town of Herzogenaurach, where the second factory was located, fell under American occupation. Rudolf was accused of being part of the elite SS troops and sent to a POW camp. Adolf, although also a Nazi Party member, saved his business by making hockey skates for the U.S. market as part of reparations. This saved both him and the company. In return, Dassler received surplus U.S. Army equipment, including tents and old baseball gloves, which helped the family rebuild their business almost from scratch in 1946. After the occupation, Rudolf returned to the family business, and the brothers resumed making shoes. However, given post-war Germany's economic struggles, raw material shortages, and international isolation, they made a controversial but necessary decision. They began producing shoes from leftover military uniforms. Absolutely everything was used. For example, the soles of the shoes were made from old tires of military vehicles, and the 47 hired workers were paid in goods like firewood, yarn, and other supplies. However, the differing worldviews and visions for the future of the company increasingly led to conflicts between the two brothers. Joint work was no longer possible as it had been before, and this prompted them to split all assets. Shortly after their father's death, the brothers parted ways. Rudolf took the new factory, and Adolf took the old one. They agreed never to use the name or symbols of the family business again. One named his company Ruda, short for Rudolf Dassler, and the other Adidas, which soon became Adidas, a shortening of Adi Dassler. Meanwhile, Ruda was renamed Puma. Thus, the once famous Dassler brand ceased to exist, and two new brands were born, Adidas and Puma, which we all know today. To the end of their days, the brothers remained silent about the reasons for their quarrel. What is most surprising is that after the collapse of the family business, the brothers never spoke to each other again, becoming fierce competitors. Adolf's company quickly gained popularity. High quality and innovation helped Adidas become one of the main sports brands. On August 18, 1949, Adolf took the two stripes from the Dassler logo, added a third stripe, and patented it as the Adidas symbol. From 1952, the company began producing other goods under the Adidas brand. The first attempt to diversify the product line was the production of sports bags, and although shoes remained the main product, Adi found a partner to produce clothing. This partner was the owner of a textile factory, Willy Seltenreich, whom Adi ordered 1,000 sports suits from, with 3 stripes along the sleeves. The goods sold like hotcakes, and the partners liked each other so much that soon Seltenreich worked exclusively for Adidas. At the 1954 World Cup in Bern, the German football team, wearing Adidas shoes, won the championship for the first time. This was due in part to another Adidas innovation, removable spikes on the boots. After this victory, sales of Adidas boots increased from 800 pairs to 2,000 pairs per day. In 1956, Adidas even received official permission to advertise at the Olympic Games in Melbourne. That same year, Adidas signed its first licensing agreement with a Norwegian factory in Jorvik, and soon Adidas products began to be manufactured in France as well. By the late 1950s, Adidas entered the U.S. market, capitalizing on the growing popularity of sports and the lack of serious competition at the time. By the end of the 1970s, the company owned 24 factories in 17 countries, selling around 200,000 pairs of shoes per day, as well as clothing, balls, and bags. In 1970, the Adidas Telstar ball became the official ball of the World Cup held in Mexico. In 1972, Adidas became the title sponsor of the Olympic Games in Munich, and the West German football team won the European Championship that year. This was also the year when Adidas introduced its famous trefoil logo, which represents the company's presence on 3 continents. In 1974, German footballers, wearing Adidas boots, won the World Cup for the second time, and at the 1976 Olympic Games, athletes equipped with Adidas won 75 gold, 86 silver, and 88 bronze medals, a record that has yet to be broken. In 1978, at the age of 77, Adolf Dassler passed away. The leadership of the company was transferred to his widow, Käthe. After the founder's death, the company entered its most difficult crisis, primarily due to the emergence of strong competitors like Nike and Reebok. In the 1980s, these brands began aggressive advertising campaigns in North America. By the end of the decade, they controlled 50% of the U.S. sports footwear market, while Adidas' share had shrunk to a critical 3%. Adolf Dassler's heirs did not remain at the helm for long. Käthe passed away in 1984, and in 1987, Horst Dassler, Adolf and Käthe's son, also died. Struggling to stay afloat in 1989, the remaining heirs sold the company for only 440 million Deutsche Marks to French entrepreneur Bernard Tapie, then the owner of the French football club Olympique de Marseille. The heirs kept only 20% of the company's shares. At that time, Adidas was on the brink of disaster. Interest in the brand was quickly fading, and Nike and Reebok had already become the dominant sports companies. However, the new owner, Tapie, was unable to improve the company's situation. In 1993, he sold Adidas, and a few years later, Tapie was declared bankrupt. A group of French investors became the new owners, appointing Robert Louis Dreyfus as the head of Adidas. Under his leadership, the company began a major reorganization. The marketing budget was significantly increased, and production was outsourced to countries like Indonesia, China, and Thailand. Saving on cheap labor in third world countries made Adidas products competitive again on the global market. By 1995, the company's profits had more than doubled compared to 1994. In 1997, Adidas acquired the French company Salomon Sport, a leading manufacturer of winter sports goods. Until 2005, the conglomerate was called Adidas Salomon. This move made the company the second largest sports goods producer in the world after Nike, increasing sales by 1.5 times, particularly in the US. In 1999, to mark the 50th anniversary of the company, Adidas began constructing a new headquarters and opened offices in Japan, Turkey, and the Netherlands. In 2001, the company began forming its own retail network, with the first two Adidas Originals stores opening in Berlin and Tokyo in 2001, and another in New York in 2002. The brand was gaining popularity each year. In 2005, Adidas sold Salomon Sport, and with the proceeds, in August 2005, it purchased 100% of Reebok International Limited for $3.8 billion. This acquisition allowed Adidas to increase its market share in the critical U.S. sports goods market to 20%, closing in on the market leader, Nike, which controls 35%. Today, Adidas operates with only two small factories of its own, one in Germany and one in the U.S., with all other production outsourced to 290 different factories. Of these, 71% are located in Asia, 18% in the Americas, 6% in Africa, and 5% in Europe. In terms of footwear production, 97% of the products are manufactured in Asia, including in Vietnam, Indonesia, and China. In 2018 alone, 409 million pairs of Adidas shoes were produced, with 11% of those coming from the largest factories in Vietnam. Footwear accounts for 58% of the company's total sales. Products are sold under two main brands, Adidas and Reebok, with a sales ratio of 90% to 10% between them. By the end of 2018, Adidas employed 57,000 people, with an average annual turnover of $24 billion and a net profit of nearly $2 billion each year. Adidas is one of the largest sponsors of sports teams and famous athletes worldwide. Several times, the beloved brand came close to disappearing, facing bankruptcy and possibly fading into history. However, Adolf Dassler always placed commercial success second to his relentless passion for sports. He was a very active person, playing tennis and swimming in pools even at 75 years old. One of his hobbies was designing footwear. Many of the innovations in football boots, such as interchangeable studs, can be credited to him. Dassler managed his company's affairs until the very end. His path to success was long and thorny, but thanks to Adolf Dassler, a simple shoemaker from a provincial town, a global giant was born. Friends, what is your favorite sportswear brand and why? Be sure to share your opinion in the comments, and don't forget to subscribe to the channel for many more new and interesting videos.